All right. Well, that deadline sucked. Can't remember a can't remember a worse deadline than that. And by worse, I mean just boring. It's a very very boring deadline. And I'm all for like role players getting moved and kind of improving on the margins, stuff like that. Like I had nothing against any of the moves that were made. Obviously, as a Kings fan, I wish we had made some moves, but yeah, just like none of there just weren't many moves in general. And the Kings they stand pat again. I guess they technically did make a move. The Kings acquired Robin Lopez from the Bucks and then immediately released him. Apparently, the Kings got cash considerations, so welcome back to the squad, old reliable. Uh, hey, cash considerations never lost us a game. That's all I'll say. But yeah, pretty frustrating. I guess you just gotta assume that there was nothing out there that would have improved the Kings. Although I feel like we could have gotten Royce O'Neal for a reasonable price. And truthfully, like the guys who got moved were all moved at a reasonable price, in my opinion. Certainly a price that the Kings could have matched. But who knows? Maybe Monty just really values second round picks. I don't know. I will say, there wasn't a move out there that would have made the Kings drastically better. But I feel like there could have been moves made that, would have made us at least a little better. I think we all know as fans what this team's weaknesses are. You'd assume that, like, the Kings team and their front office is well aware of the weaknesses. And yet, we still didn't address them. We're running it back, which in some ways I feel good about, and in other ways I don't. I do think we have like a good core, good chemistry, and I think there's something to be said about like keeping that intact. But at the same time, we like I just mentioned, we have very clear weaknesses that there were guys on the market who could have helped in some of those areas. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it was just a very boring deadline, especially when we were linked to so many names. And then on top of that, you look around and see what the rest of the conference did, and some other teams in the West got better, specifically the Mavs and the Suns, who the Kings are right there in the standings with. They're right there in the mix, and they made some moves to get better. Now, I don't think the moves they made put them into like a higher tier or anything. Like the Kings are still right there with them, although I do think the Suns at full strength are a better team than the Kings. I don't feel the same way about Dallas. I think the Kings match up pretty well against them and could beat them. If they played in the playoffs, I would pick the Kings to beat them. But I will give the Mavs credit because unlike the Kings, they saw that their offseason acquisitions weren't really panning out, and so they made a pivot and went after some new guys. Try to fix those errors. Whereas the Kings didn't make any moves at last year's trade deadline. In the offseason, I was like, okay, this is the time where we'll improve this team. And we went out, got Chris Duarte for a couple seconds, got JaVale McGee and Sasha Vezenkov, who, to be fair, hasn't really gotten a chance necessarily to showcase his skills. I guess. I think if he had more playing time, at least more consistent playing time, I think he'd be a little bit better, and at least like a serviceable guy off the bench. But yeah, overall, the acquisitions we made this summer haven't really panned out, and so this trade deadline was an opportunity to kind of right those wrongs. I still like the guys on the team. Don't get me wrong. Like I still think JaVale has a place on this team. Like I've said now for the third time, we got some clear weaknesses as far as like defense, length on the perimeter, especially. Uh, just like it'd be nice to have a better starting three than Harrison Barnes, and then a backup point guard is kind of the big one that comes to my mind. And yeah, we just didn't do a thing. But yeah, the Mavs, went out and tried to improve their team. Even the Suns, they signed a lot of like veteran minimum guys in the summer to kind of fill out their team, and now they're trying to kind of improve upon that. Nothing like super substantial necessarily, but still like they're at least trying to get better. And I think that's the part that frustrates me the most is that the Kings still look and feel like a first round exit. And I think we could have made moves to change that, or at least like increase our odds. But and this is just my opinion. I think in Monty's eyes, there's no difference between losing in the first round or losing in the Western Conference Finals. He's trying to build a championship team, and there were just no moves to be made to progress us toward that goal. And that's fine. And I even think it's fine, say, like, we were to lose in the first round again. It's not the end of the world. Obviously, it would suck, but like, this is our second year having this team together with this coaching staff. We're in year two, So, like, especially in this really tough Western Conference, losing in the first round is nothing to, like, hang your head about. As long as it's like a competitive series, I'll throw that little caveat in there. If they get like the brakes beaten off them, then yeah, I'd feel kind of worried about where this team's going. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, there's a lot of matchups in the first round that don't really favor the Kings. There's just a lot of good teams in the West. Kings are definitely one of them. Like, I still like our team, but I think we're clearly in that second or third tier of Western Conference teams. And now we've shown flashes this year where we looked like we could compete with anyone, but then we lose to the Pistons at home, lose to the Hornets at home, lose to the Blazers, and we blow some fourth quarter leads. And you see shit like that, and as a fan, you want to see something change. And in our minds, we see that as an opportunity to upgrade our roster. But that didn't end up happening. And we just got to trust that there was nobody out there worth getting. And, whether you trust that or not is totally up to you. I've decided personally to trust Monty because he hasn't led us astray so far in his tenure here. And also, like, what other choice do we have? This is the best Kings team we've seen in almost 20 years. In my mind, you can either enjoy it or continue to find reasons to complain. And speaking of that, I've seen some people, and not just any old people, but people who have quite the following in the Kings world, saying that we're worse this year than we were last year. How? We have a better record at this point this year than we did last year. We're in a much tougher Western Conference, which has more to do with the overall health of the conference. But I think we also have the new rest slash load management rules to thank for that. We're seeing like the best players in the West play a lot more often than we did last year, and so yeah, there's just more competition in the West. I feel like every game is a battle. But with that said, we have a better record, even though we've played a tougher schedule of games, and yet somehow we're worse. I get that we're the 7th seed as opposed to the 3 seed, and we don't have any all-stars this year, even though Fox and Delmos are having even better years this year than last. Best years of their careers, in fact. So yeah, I don't know how you can say we're worse. I don't think we're like objectively better, but we're definitely not worse. I don't know. You just can't convince me that this team that we're watching this year is not as good as the team that we saw last year. You could make the argument that we've had some lower lows, but at the same time, like, everything was a high last year. We'd lose and be like, whatever. We're still 10 games over 500. Are you kidding me? What am I going to complain about? Uh, yeah, I mean, this year definitely feels worse, but no shit. First time doing anything is always going to be like the best time. So, yeah, I think that's where more of that is coming from. I think you're confusing your feelings with like what's actually going on. And what's actually going on is the Canes are right in the mix in the West. Have we had some bad losses? For sure. But, we've also had some pretty good wins. But yeah, I just wanted to address that amidst all the doom and gloom that seems to be surrounding the Canes right now. And, that's warranted. Your feelings are valid. We just lost to the 6-win Pistons at home and then did nothing about it. Did not address it one single bit. So yeah, that's tough. But also, last year the Kings did the same exact shit at the deadline, and every Kings fan lost their mind. And we ended up going on a little run right after that. So you never know. I have faith in the team, and we still have a lot of basketball left. And dude, we're still like, what, 5.5 games back to the 1 seed? It's not like we're out of the playoff race. 7 seed definitely doesn't feel great, but think about where we were this time 2 years ago. Just traded away Halliburton, and we thought the world was ending. If somebody had told us then that 2 years later we'd take the defending champs to 7 games and then be the 7 seed at the trade deadline the following year, we'd all take that deal in a heartbeat. We'd probably kill somebody to take that deal. So let's just take a deep breath and let this thing play out. It's not like we're out there playing the games. We have no control. And obviously, you could say that about any fucking sports thing ever. That's, part of the joy of being a sports fan. But I wouldn't lose your mind. We're still a good team. And, there's also a chance that we pick up somebody on the buyout market. Spencer Dinwiddie is a free agent now. maybe we get our Brooklyn die after all. But yeah, boring ass deadline. I think we can all agree on that. Not just a Kings thing either. I think every NBA fan feels that way, unless you're like a Knicks fan or something. But yeah, shout out cash considerations, man. I think he can be big for us down the stretch.